Broadley Copse Farm, next to Funtington village in Sussex, had a system with 12,000 pigs that were born in outdoor units spread out across the area and fattened elsewhere. However, the farm has recently started to fatten 50,000 pigs a year in cramped pens and 2 enormous new sheds. The farm is not a farm anymore, but a factory, marketing 1,000 pigs per week. Since the expansion of the farm, neighbours have been suffering from the toxic stench from piles of pig faeces stored outside the sheds before being fed to an anaerobic digester to generate so-called green energy. Without this anaerobic digester, the pig unit would not have got the planning permission.
I now want to show you some drone footage that relates specifically to what's happening here at home. So the big sheds you see here, these are the sheds that house the indoor pigs. This is the area of the AD plant, and these are the challows where the outdoor pigs are reared. I'll talk more about that a little bit, but I just want you to have a little look at the challows and the pigs. I'm not sure exactly how many challows there are. I'm sure Tom will be able to tell us, but I think there are in the region of 3,000 or 4,000 pigs in these challows. And in each one, as a rough count, when we stop footage, there are about 50. But clearly they're not outdoor free-range pigs. If we look here, for example, all the pigs at this end of Challow trying to get away from the wet conditions. I know it's difficult to do, it rains, but I think this was taken at a time where it had not been particularly wet. But you can see the scale of the number of challows. Now where you see stock footage, where you see these areas here that look like they've had challows on them, they have, because the challows are rotated from time to time, because the pigs can't stay on the same ground all the time, so they're rotated. Every time they are rotated, all the bedding and the muck and everything they've been living in for a period of time is then scooped out and piled up and put into big piles on the field and stays there, waiting to be distributed onto the surrounding fields. Just here, there is a little pig that got out and they're trying to put it in. But it's quite interesting to know that these pigs here running around seem a little bit scared of these guys. The RSPCA tell us that an indication of welfare of animals is whether they run away from you or not. That's from the RSPCA, not my words. So the pig is now back in. You can see the ground is quite wet all around. These are the pigs that feed the pigs that go into the shed. So once they've been in here and they reach 35 kilos, they go into the sheds. Now these are lagoons. Think of these as big balloons. These are balloons that take the waste that's produced from the anaerobic digester process. They go into these balloon bags. Stop the footage a sec. And from time to time, they are emptied, they're put into tankers, and it is taken away, and I believe spread on the land. The water you see here is not the waste from the AD plant, it is rainwater sitting on top of the balloons, but clearly it's stagnant. But this is how the pigs are transported onto the site. And it will in a minute it'll pass a tractor with a trailer with some pigs that are being put into the large sheds. The area in the middle is where rye and maize is stored, which is combined with manure and straw to go into the anaerobic digester to create the biological process that breaks it down. It's stored in the middle of the site. I'm just going to watch these guys go up here and into the sheds. But I wanted to point out this, which is the manure that comes out of the pig sheds. Every shed is cleared out every 2 days. It rotates, and it is scooped into these bunkers and sits there for a while, and I'm sure it varies, but it sits there for a while. It is allowed to be there for up to 12 hours, and it sits there until it is picked up by scoops and fed into a hopper that feeds the anaerobic digester. This is a shot that shows 3 dead pigs in the scoop of a tractor. The reality is, when you have intensive farming, there is a mortality rate. Pigs will die. So they have to deal with those. And they do. They transport them in tractors, and they have an incinerator on site, and they're allowed to have an incinerator on site, and they do, and they burn the pigs in the incinerator. The fumes from that incinerator goes into the atmosphere. But I would just challenge that for a second with some footage you're about to see. So note, please, before we continue, the nature of that tractor. So here is what I believe to be an incinerator, but you can see the bucket from the trailer there with smoke coming off it. So smoke is being released into the atmosphere from, we believe, and I may be challenged on that, and that's fine, but I believe it is burning animals. It is entirely legal to burn animals on site if you have an incinerator, it's part of the permit. But what is not legal is to move the ashes from those pigs until they have stopped burning. And what this tractor is doing, if you could run it, is bringing it here so that it can be hosed down. You'll see this guy here getting a hose, and he's going to start hosing it down, and note the smoke that comes off it when he does that. That's going into the atmosphere. That's passing over your house and my house, depending on the wind direction. I don't think it's right. This is interesting, this is the last bit of footage here. Notice again the emissions and the smoke that's coming off this. This is a pile of manure. In actual fact, this is a bit of a reversing of the process. So this is out in the open, and you can see it's all disappearing off towards houses. The tractor is actually taking it from the hopper and putting it into a pile in the field. The suggestion is that that's because the hopper's not working, so they've got to empty it in some way. There's the hopper that feeds the AD plant. And when the digger goes in there again, notice the smoke that comes off it. This is a process that's going on all the time. And in terms of its production capability, the factory sends off 1,000 pigs every single week for slaughter. This is not a farm, it is a factory.